Thank you so much, Justin, for joining us today on the Cash Flow Show. Justin Green is the founder of Assist FP and is a financial planner. Could you tell us a little bit about your business and how you got started and how it's grown since then?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Kelsey. I appreciate it. So like Kelsey said, I'm Justin Green, founder of Assist FP, a virtual financial planning firm for millennials. I kind of got started. I was working at a small traditional retirement planning firm for about 4 years. And I just realized that I wanted to work more with my peers rather than retirees. As you can tell, I'm younger. So it was a little bit hard to relate with the older clients. And I just enjoyed working with the younger clients. So last year around Thanksgiving, I decided to make the leap and go out a little bit longer than I was anticipating. So I finally got started early this year around the end of March. And it's been great so far.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what's your vision for Assist FP in the next 5 years or so?
Yeah, so Assist FP, I'm envisioning a lifestyle financial planning firm. So I don't plan at this moment to add any employees, but I do want to serve about 60 to 80 clients over the next 5 years. I would like to build up to that. So while I won't employ any full-time employees, I will have to leverage a lot of outsourced tasks such as marketing, admin work, using like a virtual paraplanner, or virtual admin, hiring, a virtual bookkeeping service. But, in our profession, about one new client a month is actually pretty decent. So over the next 5 years, if I can get up to about 60 to 80 and leverage all those outsourced professionals, I think that'd be a very good place to be.
Definitely. So I know that being a registered investment advisor, you don't take commissions. So you focus on fee-only payment scales, which are a little bit different than other financial planners. Can you tell me a little bit about how that affects your revenue model and how you plan to grow?
Correct. So I am a fee-only fiduciary financial planner. Fee-only essentially just means I get paid directly from the client. That can be on multiple different ways. That could be in multiple different ways, such as asset management fees or a monthly subscription model. But I don't sell any financial products and receive some type of, could I put my clients' interests before my own? I wouldn't say necessarily there's any hurdles to face in terms of revenue. It's just different. I just have to be upfront about how I'm charging.
So yeah, I noticed you had a lot of interesting models though for your revenue. And that you have like the huddle and these different bundles that you can have if you don't have, I guess, enough or you're not ready for the fee only option. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So they're all fee only options. Anytime I'm getting paid directly from the client, that's technically fee only. Okay. But I do offer different type of models because working with younger clients, there's definitely different areas of working with them, and some are at different stages of life where they're ready for a more ongoing planning approach, where some are just kind of starting out and they just need a little bit of advice to get them started. So the financial huddle is kind of a short-term project per se. And that just allows me to help some younger clients, maybe young families, get started with the financial planning process. But they take my recommendations, they kind of implement it on their own. The ongoing monthly subscription is more of an ongoing planning process. So I work with them ongoing. I bill them monthly, but it's more of an annual fee. So we're meeting multiple times throughout the year, usually 3 to 4 times. At the beginning of the engagement, it's usually more than that. But there's constant communication, and we're always looking at doing a lot of tax planning scenarios, which we can kind of do on an ongoing basis. And then if they have assets to manage, then there is a separate fee for that. And I don't take on clients normally that just want asset management because I'm more financial planning centric. And then the asset management is kind of just an add-on.
Okay, well, that makes perfect sense. So I was wondering, since you do focus so much on financial planning, for both families, do you take on helping businesses, or I guess young entrepreneurs, or I guess service professionals? Do you help them with cash flow and planning their business finances, or is it mostly individuals?
No, absolutely. So mostly self-employed individuals. I haven't worked with any, you know, small businesses or large businesses, but I do work with some self-employed individuals. And as you know, with self-employed, you know, cash flow, personal cash flow and business cash flow sometimes are commingled. And so it's very important to get them to separate those. And then that is a big focus when working with those individuals, is how to monitor cash flow and find where your pain points are to fix that. Because if you can't get a hold of your business cash flow, then of course you're going to start dipping into your own personal cash flow, and things just get a little messy from there.
Definitely. And what are the most common issues that you find with people when it comes to their cash flow? Like, are they not tracking expenses, or do they not understand what cash flow is versus profit? What kind of things do you see?
Yeah, the most common one is they're just scared to look at the numbers. So a lot of people, they avoid the numbers because they're scared of what it's going to tell them. So they might feel that tension, that something isn't making sense with the cash flow, where things are super tight, or their expenses are clearly higher than their income, but they're scared to look at the actual expenses and income and figure out where those pain points are. So that's the most common scenario. And to fix that is simply, you have to look at it. You got to put it on paper, and then you can kind of figure out what those pain points are and move forward to fix them.
Right. And for your business, do you use a certain kind of platform to manage cash flow, or is there one that you recommend to your clients to use?
So in my business, I actually use a payment processor called Advice Pay. We have a lot of regulations. So Advice Pay allows us to bill clients in a compliant manner, but they have a pretty good dashboard that kind of shows me, it's like a bar chart, and shows me projected revenue over the next few months, and I can change that to 6 months, a year, etc. That's extremely helpful for me because as I continue to grow, that projected income is based off of ongoing subscriptions that I already have set up. So that allows me to see, maybe in the next 3 months is when I start to add on some of those outsourced professionals. So I can see as that income grows, when will I hit the point where I can afford to cover, some outsourced professionals.
Right, definitely. And you said you can see in the future as well, so you forecast your cash flow. How far into the future do you normally prefer to look?
Not too far. So usually 6 months to a year at most. Being self-employed and having a pretty good grip on my cash flow. I think if I project too far out, I'm kind of just using a lot of assumptions that who knows if they'll be right or wrong. So I try and keep it to about 6 months to 12 months based on how momentum's going, how the revenue is looking from maybe new clients I've signed up that are going to start having their monthly subscriptions kick in over the next couple months. But I try not to focus too far in advance.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, because I know that from trying to monitor my own cash flow, that the farther you go, the less accurate it typically gets. So keeping it reasonable is big.
Yeah, and that's like financial planning in general. We have to use a lot of assumptions. So even working with younger clients, millennials, I try not to do a lot of retirement projections right now because so many assumptions would go into a projection, 30, 40, 50 years down the road, that it just wouldn't be accurate. So I'm more focused on doing the right things and setting up the proper systems in the short term that are going to put them on the right track to reaching those goals.
Right. That makes perfect sense. So when you're doing your own cash flow reporting, how granular do you normally get when looking at expenses and income and things like that?
I don't get too granular. I mean, with expenses, I do because believe it or not, with our business, there's not a lot of expenses. We can actually run pretty lean. Most of my expenses come from one of my membership programs. So I have I use a spreadsheet, and I have all my expenses kind of mapped out. And then I just simply use the Advice Pay models for my projected income. And then that way I can see, if there's going to be a shortage moving forward, or how much of a surplus, and then looking at the surplus, I can start to make decisions for the business to accelerate growth.
Okay, and that makes perfect sense. And what kind of advice would you give to someone who's maybe struggling to take control of their cash flow?
Yeah, so this kind of relates back to earlier. My advice would definitely be sit down, look at the numbers, figure out where your pain points are, so that way you can kind of solve those issues. And then one of the top resources I like to recommend, and it's not perfect because it's definitely talking to a mass crowd, but it's a great place to get started, is a book called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. So I implement a similar version of that in my own business. But it really it allows you to kind of get a grasp on your mindset around cash flow and start to use cash flow to run your business rather than have your business run you.
Right. And can you tell me a little bit more about the book and the mindset that you use? Because I think that would be very valuable.
Yeah, so essentially the book and the mindset kind of associated with the book is to pay yourself first, because a lot of businesses they just implement system, or they fail to implement systems, and they just start adding expenses without the income to support it. And next thing you know, you've got maybe very high revenue, but your expenses are even higher. It's almost like similar to on the personal side, what we call lifestyle creep, where your income goes up, but your expenses are going up with it or higher. And so you're incurring debt. So the book kind of allows you to implement a system that would allow you to take profit first. So traditionally it's, income minus expenses equals profit. And so it's kind of flipping that equation upside down and allowing you to take profit first. And of course, if your cash flow situation is not very great, then it's going to be a very small profit at the beginning, but it wants you to kind of get in that habit first and then kind of build from that.
Right. Because I can imagine it's extremely easy to kind of blow through the cash that you get, especially if you're working in an industry that's maybe more focused on inventory or, like retail and things like that, or equipment, where you need kind of, you have a lot of overhead or a lot of different expenses. So you have to kind of understand that system to get a good foundation for long-term sustainability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's just a good way to organize your account. So it recommends having multiple bank accounts to kind of, it's almost like an envelope system in a way. So you're putting your taxes in one place, your profit in one, your operating expenses here, and you have X amount for operating expenses. So you have to stay under that. Because another issue that happens if you don't have control of your cash flow, and if you're not putting away enough funds for taxes, then that becomes an issue when your taxes are due. So it's really good to get on top of your cash flow.
100%, especially with tax reporting. Do you find that your clients, especially the self-employed clients that you work with, do they tend to save for the end of the year and pay, or do they actually pay the quarterly taxes?
Yeah, so they need to pay the quarterly taxes. So it's best that they're saving, X amount each month or every couple of weeks, however they want to implement the system, but saving X amount for taxes. A lot of times it's 15, sometimes 20%, depending on how much income they're actually generating. But they want to have that set aside, so when that tax bill does come quarterly, they already have it. They don't have to stress over where they're going to pull it from, or pull it from their funds and then have to figure out how to replenish those. It's already there, it's paid for. That's the IRS's money, and you don't want to mess with the IRS.
Definitely. It's the last person you want to mess with.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's wonderful. So, and also I was just thinking, in your work, are you able to help clients, and this might be under more of a tax professional, because I know some businesses, including self-employed people, can take tax write-offs. So understanding that cash flow can also help you kind of plan, I can imagine, for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's really important to, track your expenses, just so that way, one, you can deduct them from your income on an annual basis. and that will reduce your overall tax liability.
Mhm.
So that's really important. If you're a business owner or self-employed and you're not paying attention to where your money's going, it's a big issue itself, because then you're unable to deduct those expenses and save by not paying taxes on them.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you so much, Justin, for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kelsey. I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of chat about cash flow. And, it's as a financial planner, I get excited about that stuff.
Definitely. As someone who works with fintech, it's like exciting to talk about on my end too.